I'm a bit frustrated by what I see happening in London with this lockdown. What do you think drives, mayors of large cities to really want to shut down and just bleed an economy when everyone I speak to, and I've been speaking to, you name it, traders on the street, people in hospitality, people, entrepreneurs, people running coffee bars, like I said, former police officers, they all want to find ways to continue people working safely, of course. Well, why do you think that knee-jerk reaction is to shut everything down?
I think the truth is that our political leaders in Westminster and indeed in City Hall in London and elsewhere don't really know how to best deal with this pandemic. It is unprecedented. And that applies to our scientists. And people say follow the science, but of course there are many scientists with different views on how to best do this. So there is no one best suggested way of doing this. I think, as you've said, that the lockdown initially, when we didn't know about this disease, how serious it was probably the right and essential decision to take at that time. Certainly, it seemed so, and I think most people wouldn't criticise the government for doing it. But I think the idea now of having sort of a series of lockdowns, because if lockdowns are needed, this awful word that people are using, circuit breaker, this is a disease, this is not an electric circuit. I find that quite an unhelpful phrase, as if suddenly that's a click your fingers solution. And yet this so-called circuit breaker lockdown doesn't actually involve stopping people getting together in the areas where we know that the virus is spreading. Now, I have 3 school-aged children myself. I think my kids do need to be in school and in education, but that means that it's being accepted that there will be a spread of COVID-19 in schools. That's a decision. Let's be honest about that. That decision has been taken. So if it was really about controlling the virus, and if it was a virus that had a higher death rate, and thank goodness it isn't, it is awful, and every single death of all conditions is a tragedy and very, very regrettable of people of any age. But if it was so essential to stop the spread of this disease, then schools could not be open, workplaces could not be open, students would not have been told to go back to university, and yet that's not the case. So the idea that simply shutting sections of our economy down and shutting down our pubs because they're deemed not to be essential services, whilst allowing people to still go to the supermarket, to still go to school, it clearly is a flawed strategy. And then what do we do if it makes a slight difference and then the figures go up again? Do we have another one? Do we have another one then in later November, before Christmas, over Christmas? Do we ban Christmas altogether? I think that's very unlikely that politicians would do that. And yet, if you're going to say, well, you can have Christmas, but we know that the virus will spread because you're having Christmas, well, how can that fit in with a strategy being presented to us that we need to keep locking things down? And in reality, I think it has become clear we're not going to have a vaccine being developed in the short term. And all of us, of course, around the world, human nature is facing this particular disease and pandemic. We all wish that scientists anywhere in the world will find a vaccine. But even then, that is not the silver bullet. Scientists are clear about that. Probably we can't vaccinate everybody anyway. That's not realistic and may not even be necessary. But it's not going to happen in the short term. So we have to find a way to live alongside it. Now, that means changing our behaviour. Someone reached out to give me a handshake, something that I would have willingly done a few months ago. And of course said, oh no, we can't do that at the moment. I didn't want to look rude, but we have to do things like that. We have to have that little bit of distance between people. I haven't seen my own parents since February, and that's tough. But we all accept things like this. But simply thinking that there are easy, click your fingers solutions that sound good when you're on a radio interview or a television interview making a soundbite, I'm afraid that is not going to deal with this very complex situation where we have the ongoing spread of COVID-19 in places like schools, in places like workplaces, essential workplaces. I had a plumber visit yesterday. I had to have a plumber come round because I had a leak. I can't stop that happening, and nor would anyone suggest it. So we need to just change our behaviour, find a way to live alongside it. And I think our argument is that pubs and restaurants have shown that that is possible. You know, once we got used to it after the 4th of July, as it was, of course, here, that was a great day for us here with pubs finally being able to reopen. So much effort had gone in, so much expense in perspex screens, in signage, in sanitizers, one-way systems, signs on the floor, extra outdoor space to keep people safe. You know, once people had done it, I was encouraging people and saying, yeah, try it. You know, I know you're probably feeling nervous, but try it. And everyone who then did said, yes, you know what, I feel really safe. I feel safer in the pub than I do in a supermarket, than I do wandering around in town and city centres. So actually, and it's a reminder, you know, when you go into an environment like that and you're told, yes, you know, you've got to do this, can you pay by card? Can you make sure that you know, stand 2 meters apart, follow the signage? Now masks, if we've got to wear masks, you know, then we'll do it. But we can't just keep closing things down, because the consequences of doing that are not being understood by too many people. And I think in the end, we need to do that. And pubs, I believe, have shown the way and shown they can do it. But unless they're allowed to get back to doing that, and doing that without unnecessary restrictions, then I'm afraid we will lose many of them, as well as having many, many people struggling, facing hardship in many cases, looking for work. And then we have another whole host of problems in society, and illnesses, mental illness, physical illness. It's just not a strategy that is sustainable. And I think we're almost at that tipping point.